Okay, so my name is Todd Muise. So living in Frog Point, which was once called the Ring Road or William Allen Road my whole life, and my love for the Chebogue River, I've always wondered about the old foundations on our road and who lived there in the past. So years ago, I researched the islands of the Chebogue River and researched who lived there and other information. Then I discovered Reverend Jonathan Scott's journal, and I would sit there for hours reading at the library and museum, then photocopying over 70 sheets, which I have read many times. So about 15 years ago, um, my father showed me a Clarence Donchmont story on Fort Lomeron and Chebogue. And I went that weekend with my kayak and Spencer, with my son Spencer, up the creek at Anthony's, but I didn't see anything, but it was right in front of me the whole time. In the winter of 2016-17, while researching again, I found Champlain's map of 1607, and like a light bulb over my head, I thought of Rogers Point. I put this map on my screensaver, and I didn't know what I was about to get myself into. One foundation in particular is at Rogers Point, and I would sit there many times in my life. There's very people that know little about this spot. There's only a few of us that hunt back there. There was a map that I had from the museum from 1868 with the houses in the Yarmouth area, and there was no houses at this location at that time. So I can't explain why in the beginning of 2017 I became so obsessed with this story, but over the years it has all come together. My presentation is my research of what I found and what I believe, but there's no doubt that Rogers Point was a possible trading post and one of the houses on Champlain's 1607 map, and that the Chebogue River was home to Fort Lomeron. So we're going to go over some of the history, 400 years of history of the Chebogue River. So the article that Reverend Clarence Donchmont had that Dad gave me was, and this is what he wrote. It was once on the right bank of the Chebogue River at a place that used to be called Indian Point, then Point Crocker, known today as Crocker Hill, a heap of rocks, which it was said could have been the remains of a monument built in memory of some great Indian chief. During the course of the Second World War, the Canadian Army used this site as a firing range, and thus the relic of the past disappeared. If the Wyman Road coming from Yarmouth were to be extended in a straight line, it would end about the same place which stood above the cliff before the descent toward the river. These premises are now occupied by H.V. Anthony greenhouses. I would be surprised if the heap of rocks would have been a monument built in memory of the Indian chief. If so, it would have been the only example that we would have of such a dedication by the Indians in this part of the country. Furthermore, it does not seem that it could have been a tomb of an Indian over which was erected a monument because of Mark Lescarbot, who was here in 1606, 1607, tells us the Indians living in southwestern Nova Scotia buried their dead on a secluded island towards Cape Sable, adding that those islands which they used as cemeteries are kept secret among them. So very old authors talk about a fort at Tabuk, the Indian name for what is now Chebogue, and they called it Fort Lomeron, given even to the place the name Port Lomeron. David Lomeron, who was from La Rochelle, France, came to Acadia every year from 1614 to 1623, except in 1622, the year he got married. He acted as agent for two of his rich uncles who dealt in the fish and pelt business. He traded first in Port Royal with Biencourt, one of the pioneers of Acadia, but in 1618, Biencourt moved to Tabuk to be closer to the rich fishing grounds, also to the most frequented hunting regions. That is why Tabuk became a trading post, and as a fort of some sort was always erected for protection wherever a trading post was established, the one at Tabuk took the name of Lomeron, and it is then that the place itself was known for a time as Port Lomeron. Oh, hold on, wasn't done. In 1628, the Kirkes took possession of the fort in the name of the King of England, and in 1632, after the Treaty of Saint-Germain-en-Laye, it was restored to France in the hands of de Verzy. Where it is located precisely, it is not said anywhere. Rude and indifferent, it might have been as it might have been, its remains might have stayed visible for some time and even a long time. My belief is that the famous heap of rocks on top of the cliff where Anthony's Greenhouses Limited is established was the remains of Fort Lomeron up to a half a century ago. If we were sure that there are white men here in 1618, we could be quite sure that there were some even here 10 years before and even earlier. It could be that the Chebogue was a third foundation in Acadia, St. Croix Island being between New Brunswick and Maine, established in 1604, was the first, although it did not last. The next being Port Royal was founded in 1606, 1607. If there was not a permanent settlement of Chebogue, at least it was been frequented by the pioneers. Champlain in his 1607 map puts here a few buildings. He even tells us that in July 21st of the previous year in 1606, a search party landed at 2 leagues, 11 kilometers from Cape Pachou, shortly at Chebogue. Chebogue was very important to the Indians, far more important than the Yarmouth Harbor, which was almost wholly dry at low tide, says Champlain. That is why when old authors or documents refer to Cape Pachou, it is mostly reference to Chebogue. On account of its vast meadows and its proximity to the abundance of fish, seabirds, and wildlife, it was a choice camping ground for the Indians. Even though Reverend Silas Rand in his dictionary of Mi'kmaq language says that the name originally Yadipuk, meaning cold water or living water, in origin most authors have adopted, Father Sigon, who was well versed in the Mi'kmaq language, thinks that it was derived from the word meaning large metal, or grand pré in French, which is much more appropriate to its natural features and much more harmonious with the word Tubin, the first recorded spelling of the word dating back to 1631, and to the word Tubuk that the pioneers learned from the Indians themselves. It could have been that the great Mi'kmaq chief Henry Membertou lived here. It is this place called Cape Pachou that we find the oldest son Louis, when in 1613 he received with open arms Father Mass and feasted him at a banquet in which the main course was a moose. He had become Sagamo, or chief of his tribe, and after his father died, September 11, 1611. Because Henry Membertou had been baptized, he was buried on sacred ground in Port Royal, where there was a sign of habitation, which reads that here, the age of friendly Mi'kmaq chief Membertou was buried. Thus, the heap of rocks on the bank of the Chebogue River could not have been erected on the grave of the Mi'kmaq chief Henry Membertou. And even though the French had given the place the name of Port Lomeron, the original Mi'kmaq name was too much anchored in the mind of the Indians to those to identify. That is why it is lasted to this day, but written in different documents and you can see all the different spellings. With the arrival here in 1761 of the English settlers, the orthography Chebogue was given to the ancient Indian name, and it has been like that ever since. Okay. So for those that just joined, like most of my presentation is just finding documents from people who have researched this already. And I'm not an expert by any means, and I've just pretty well taken the documents and put it in my presentation. Okay, so whenever I do a lot of referencing to Father d'Entremont, you'll see that in my presentation. So this one here I just referenced, highlighted in 1613, 1618, they acknowledge that Cape Pachou colony was founded by a man named David Lomeron and a merchant of La Rochelle, France. And in 1628, Cape Pachou was sacked and burned by David Kirk. So when Leander d'Entremont wrote his book, I find like there was a lot of Fort or Port Lomeron location confusion. I just highlighted a couple of his pages and stuff on his pages, like this one where it acknowledges that in 1628, a party of New England mariners came to Acadia and destroyed a French habitation at or near Cape Pachou. It was once, no doubt, the settlement made there under the name Lomeron 10 to 15 years before. On the next page, I highlighted, on the other hand, there does be some kind of early French establishment at Yarmouth, for Champlain clearly places a flag indicating a settlement on his map of 1632. And on the page on the right, I just highlighted, but otherwise it's correct in describing that an actual minor French settlement at Yarmouth was destroyed. So again, a lot of reference to the Kirk brothers in destroying the fort in 1628. The next page, page on the left, we know that in 1628, the New English had destroyed by the French habitant near Cape Pachou, and the name Lomeron was apparently dropped from that place. And whatever Claude may have instructed the composer of that document to write into it, in regards to the question, it was something he had no knowledge of it at the time. And speaking of Cape Pachou, Denny says a certain David Lomeron formerly had an establishment there, and it has been called Fort Lomeron from the time of Sieur de la Tour. So the middle page just talks about that after the Port Royal was destroyed by Argyle, this band of colonists made their way to Chebogue. Following the coast towards the south, they met some Indians in Chicago near Cape Pachou, probably stopped there for a while. Going further, they passed Cape Pachou and met more of the tribe at Chebogue and sighted Cape Pachou. Here they found plenty of fish and game and made a settlement at some time, and there are indications of early habitations. In the bottom it says the place they had settled near Cape Pachou they called Lomeron because it is supposed to be a party. One of their party was David Lomeron. So the last highlighted part I put was, according to the records of the Council of Annapolis Royal, there were 8 families of Acadians at Tubuc in 1740, but I am inclined to believe that it was really at Tubuc or Shabuk at the mouth of the Tuscan River, which was near the Pimlico and Cape Sable. So I just found like Leander really pushed the fact that Fort Lomeron was in Pimlico. But when Father Clarence wrote his documents, he clearly acknowledges that it was the Chebogue River. So here's another document that I found, right, from John Ernskine. And you never know on the computer what you're going to find and what you can just reference in this story, right? So he just writes that Biencourt developed a profitable fur trade from his base in present Annapolis and later built a fort in Cape Sable area and named it Fort Lomeron. He devoted his short life in litigation with his French merchants and died in 1623. And on page 15, it says Charles de la Tour was an enterprising trader, and after the death of Biencourt, he took over Fort Lomeron and enlarged it to Fort St. Louis. For several years, there has been disagreement on the sites of the forts. Leander d'Anjemont, the first Acadian historian, placed Fort Lomeron at his own home in East Pimlico, Fort St. Louis at the Villagedale Sandhills, and later the fort at Sir Thomas Temple at Back Row Point. The historic sites and monuments board had shifted Fort St. Louis to Back Row Point and named it Port Latour. Much to the annoyance of the local people, neither site has been excavated to determine its date, but you guys know that it has changed over the years. So who are the Kirk brothers? So a habitation or fort, a trading post, was built here by David Lomeron, a merchant of La Rochelle, France. It was, however, destroyed by the Kirk brothers in 1628. Chebogue was also referred to as Port Lomeron and Fort Lomeron in some accounts at the time. The Acadian community of Chebogue received an influx of settlers in 1740. A chapel, St. Anne, was constructed on Durkee Island. It was one of the most important Acadian communities in southwestern Nova Scotia at the time. However, in 1758, the entire settlement was destroyed and the Acadian inhabitants deported. In 1761, English settlers from New England called planters landed at Chebogue, and they consisted of Captain Moses Perry, Ebenezer Ellis, and Sealanders and their families. So like I said, I mean, I just keep on digging like over the years. I mean, I had this for a lot of years, so just finding stuff and piecing stuff together, and from Reverend Jonathan Scott's journal to Freeman Tuppard's Fort Lomeron and Fort Louis document, to local people, right? Local people that was in the Yarmouth area that might have just wrote down 2 or 3 pages of what they see, or foundations that they knew about, or grave sites. So that's all I keep on doing, is keep on digging into the story. So Father Clarence d'Anjemont, in this book called A Good Day on the Apatow, we talked about the families that were on the Chebogue settlement that Leander thought was more toward Tuscany and Pimlico. Well, Father d'Anjemont confirms that in 1739, a small but thriving fur trading and fishing community arose at Chebogue Harbor, just outside of the present-day Yarmouth. Father d'Anjemont estimated that most of the community's pioneers settled in the Chebogue area between 1730 and 45. They included Jacques Bertrand, 4 Dowsett brothers, Joseph, Michael, Pierre, and Germain, Charles and Jean Hubert, who were sons of Antonio Hubert and Jean Corporon of Port Royal, Joseph Landry, Jacques Levine, Pierre Pache, and Dennis Petitpas. So it's nice to have actually names behind them houses, because when you go to the next page, the deportation of Chebogue River in 1758, this is Captain Gorham's report back to Major Rogers on the Chebogue River. So he says, "Sir, I just found out in Surprise, a village in a very remote part of the woods where there is a Monsieur des Enclaves, a priest, and 9 families. They are inclusive of men and women and children, 68 besides the priest, all which I propose to secure as well as I can, till I have further assistance from you, which I doubt not will be as speedy as possible. As the priest tells me, there are 6 Indian families and 20 more French families on the coast extending north further than the Tusky River. In all, 36 families included the 9 I have taken. I have secured all their arms and ammunition and propose to keep the whole in the chapel until reinforced." So his report shows that there was 9 houses, 1 chapel, 9 barns, stacks sheep or whatever. So to put the names on these houses or on these where these houses are is pretty nice to do. So okay, so that's all for the Chabot River. So now I'm going to get into Samuel Champlain, which most of you probably know more than me, but I'm going to go through this. So Samuel Champlain was born August 1567 and died in December 1635. Born in Bruges, France. Okay, so those are just joining. So I took a trip one day. So when I got into this story, I couldn't understand why, finding information about David Lomeron. So where would I go? Of course, I packed up for the day and I took my wife and we went up to Port Royal to see Wayne Melanson. So when I went in there, I had all my maps and I asked him, I said, look, I'm looking for information on Fort Lomeron. So Wayne didn't know too much. And then he went and got this book, Champlain's Dream, which he went to the map on that. And I was showing him where the houses on that map of 1607 was. So Wayne thought maybe it was a location of Indians and stuff like that. But I told him that squiggly line that Champlain had there matches more closer to the Chabot River than people realize. And anyway, I had a good discussion with Wayne. I told him I would be back, but we know that Wayne passed away, so I won't be able to do that. But he knew I was on this story, and I went through the book. So there's 700 pages in that book. There's not one mention of David Lomeron. Not once did he mention the fort or anything. Nothing, and not very little mention about that spot that he has on his map. So it's pretty. So it got more of my interest after reading that book. So Champlain's maps of 1607 shows a fort and houses on the Chabot River. In Champlain's map of 1632, Champlain shows a flag on the same spot of the Chabot River. In Jean Boiseau's map of 1643, a remake of Champlain's 1632 map, he marks this spot again with a flag. What is the significance of the flag? Clearly, it is a place of importance since you can look at the entire map and find very little flags. So Father Clarence D'Enchemont wrote on Champlain's map of 1607, if you examine this map, you will see a series of buildings on each side of the river at the bottom of the bay. The river should have been the Tusky River or the Chabot River, but we believe it to be the Chabot River. Do these buildings drawn on the map signify that there was already a trading post here? What is certain is that a few years later, we find only one such post, a well-established one bearing the name of Lomeron. It is not documented in which month of 1607 Champlain made his map, but we believe that these were erected shortly after August of 1605, following the move from Isle St. Croix to Port Royal. So there's Champlain's map of 1607. Okay, so if you look at my pointer, this is a place in question. Okay, this is the Chabot River. All right, you got Cape Sable up here, Cape Negro up here, Cape Richoux here. And when you look at this, so in 2018, when I got into the story, comparing the two maps, and this is what I was talking about when I was talking to Wayne, that this squiggly line up here where he calls, this is the exact location right here at Central Chabot where Anthony's greenhouses is. This is what I call Rogers Point, where the trading post is. Now, I call it a trading post, but that's just me. No, I'm not saying it is. Up here, this house here is up here. There's an island up here. I call it's Bill Wyman's Island. And then across the road on the Chabot Road, there's houses up here. Okay. So you can see just by the shape of that and that curve, the way that goes, as much as people might think that that's just a squiggly line, that matches pretty close to the way that map is. So Reverend Clarence D'Enchemont writes in Champlain's map of 1632, on this map, Champlain placed a flag around Cape Richoux. There's incontestable proof that there was a fort there on this date. Gannon, who blames Nicholas Denys on locating the house and calling the place Port Lomeron, says despite everything, there seemed to be a French settlement. Champlain gives evidence of this by placing a flag on the map of 1632, which indicates a settlement of some sort. He adds that it is believed that Denys describes a small settlement establishment in the Yarmouth that was destroyed in 1628. Upon closely examining the map, you will see that the flag in question is not necessarily planted where where the town of Yarmouth is located. Gannon and other authors have accustomed to identify Cape Purchue with the town of Yarmouth and would have instinctively placed the house and the flag in the town of Yarmouth instead of the Cape. Cape Purchue is actually 3 miles or almost 5 kilometers outside the town limits of Yarmouth. It is approximately the same distance as the triangular base that forms from Chabot Point. So there's Champlain's map of 1632. And when I zoom in here, okay, so you're going to see a flag up here in Cape Breton, one down here, Fort St. Louis, one at Port Royal, and you still have this one here identified in Chabot River. So these are all, I mean, we have identification of these. This one here has never been proven. And there's a close-up of it, okay? So we got Cape Purchue, Cape Sable, Port Bethune up here, but this flag here, we know that Port Royal was there, we know this one was there, so there's that one. Same thing with Jean Boiseau's map in 1643. This one here, he actually drops the one up here in Cape Sable and the one in Cape Breton. So now he has one here at the Port Royal, one here, this one's still at at the Fort Lomeron, and this one here up at Sable Island. So what's the significance? Why would he still have that flag? There had to be something up there. Okay, so as I zoom into the Chabot River, okay, so this is a Chabot River right here, Crawley's Island and all that. You can remember the map of 1607. So there's your squiggly line that Champlain wrote. And like I said, it matches up perfect that what Father Clarence Donchmont is talking about is at the end of the Wyman Road, which is this right here is Fort Lomeron. This here I always call the trading post because this is, I live right down here, just on this side of Clemens Island. This is a spot here that I call a trading post. Up here is Site 3 that I was talking about, Bill Wyman's Island, and Site 4 is here. So when they talked about the Tusket River and all that, I mean, the Tusket River was so wide and stuff like that, I figured that, I mean, you're so isolated, and when you are standing on the top of here, on here, you can see everything out here. It's quite, I'll get in that a little bit later on. So, okay, so who's this David Lomeron? Let's get into this. So David Lomeron was born in 1591 in Chinon, France. So 1591, that's only 20-something years after the massacre, Bartholomew massacre. So I mean, David Lomeron was a Huguenot. So when I started researching and realized that David Lomeron was a Huguenot and Champlain was Catholic, I started questioning, was this a Catholic Huguenot battle, right? And that's what it seems to be. David Lomeron was up here probably stealing furs from Champlain in the Chabot River. So David Lomeron was a merchant from La Rochelle. Was a merchant from La Rochelle and was a Huguenot. He was a nephew of the famous La Rochelle merchants Samuel Georges and Jean McCain, and who sent him to Canada in 1613. He took part in the disputes that set Biencourts against the Compagnie de la Nouvelle France. When Lomeron had returned to Port Royal in 1615, Charles Biencourt made him the Charles de la Fers. The following year, they together seized the Anne St. Michael, a ship belonging to the Champlain de Canada. In 1617, Lomeron, while continuing to act as for Biencourt, founded a society comprising of Pierre Georges, a regular traveler to Canada, and Pierre Garret, who went there in 1620. Lomeron continued in his double capacity until Charles de Biencourt's death in 1623. So after that, it is not clear what became of him. In 1627, there was existence near the Cape Purchue, a post called Fort Lomeron, and Nicholas Denny stated that Lomeron for several years owned an establishment there, which was restored by the English in 1628. It is known that he worked for Charles de Saint Etienne de la Tour between 1633 and 1636, and we do not know at what date he ended his service. Lomeron seems to have left La Rochelle for good, and he married Jean de Coigny there in 5th of June, 1622. Forgive my pronunciations for those that are joining too, because some of these are a little bit hard for me. So when I started research, when I realized that he was a Huguenot, okay, so that started making sense. So no wonder that Champlain never put him in his book. Maybe because he was a Huguenot, he wasn't going to mention him at all. But he was up here taking furs in at Fort Lomeron up the Chebogue River. And this document just says that Samuel Georges and Jean McCain and their nephew David Lomeron, these three had been fitting out ships for Acadia continuously since 1613, which was soon after the older men had brought Lomeron to La Rochelle from his hometown, Chinon in the Loire Valley. Earlier, Georges and McCain had been shipping to North America in partnership with the Huguenots, Lieutenant Pierre Leroy and Nouvelle France, Pierre de Gaudemont, whom Henry IV had appointed to govern New France by a commission of 8th November 1603. Beginning about 1613, Georges, McCain, and Lomeron fitted out at least 32 vessels for Acadia during the next quarter century, often in partnership with other Huguenot merchants of the town. Some of their ships carried supplies and colonists for Charles de la Tour, who was established at Port Royal as Lieutenant Port de Roy on Acadie, and who had engaged them in the French agents, okay? So this just goes on to talk about, I mean, they get into 1639, so it talks about them in their coming up the Chebogue River. So then I keep on, so one day I was on my computer and I Googled Champlain versus David Lomeron. And this guy popped up, Guy Perron. And he has a blog. And in the blog, this story was about David Lomeron sending the ship up to Nova Scotia because they didn't know where Biencourt was. And this story was about that. And that's so when I actually emailed this guy Guy Perron and told him that I was researching this spot to see if he could give me any information. So his story was about the ship that was coming here and who was on the ship and their search for Biencourt. So after having abandoned Port Royal following a slow down of the trade, the Vice Admiral of Acadia, Charles Biencourt of the St. Just, moved to Bay Current in Cape Negro in the winter of 1617 and 1618. The current bay is dotted with dangerous islands because of the rocks on the surface of the water and very strong tidal currents. Its silence in Port Royal, with the 25 men of his troop, write Adrian Huguer, Charles de Biencourt comes to lead a wanderer's and lamentable existence in the society of the Iroquois, of which he shares the purest occupations, fatigue, and pavilions. So this story goes on about that. I recommend if you guys, if you ever want to hook up and see some good stories about that, 1600s and stuff like that, and stuff from La Rochelle, look up Guy Perron's blog. He has quite some good stories. Okay, so that's it for David Lomeron. So we've established that he was a Huguenot. He was up here. He had a fort. So now let's talk about the Chebogue River. All right. So here's the spots that I pointed out. Okay, matches up perfect. You got your trading posts. You got Fort Lomeron. You got Bill Wyman Site 3, I call it, and then Site 4. So we're going to go to Rogers Point. So Rogers Point. So earlier when I was talking about when they were talking about Dirty Island and the chapel, that chapel was right on top of this piece of land right here. If you guys can see my pointer, this is Dirty Island, and that chapel was right there. This is Rogers Point. Okay, right here. Frog Point that I've always referenced to that I'm from. This is the main road. It comes this way, and my house is around here. So I live right on the Chebogue River. And Rogers Point is not far from where I am. Okay, so when I first started this 6 years ago up in Rogers Point, it's like I said, I knew there was one foundation and a couple other spots. So this site at Rogers Point that I call the trading post. I'm pointing. You guys, Terry, you can see my pointer, huh?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah. So this spot I'm pointing at right here, this is the only site I knew for a foundation. I knew that one, and I knew there was a pile of rocks down at 1C. Okay. So when I get into this story, I started doing some looking around the woods here just to see what more was there. And I started finding these places. And so that's why I named them like they are. Okay. So Rogers Point. I put this picture here because the daffodils always grew up at Rogers Point. There was always a pile inside around the foundation. And when I see it, when I'm in there in the spring and I see daffodils, I always think it's a sign that, you know, that they're still around. So that's why I got that picture there. So this is a site. Terry, are you gonna be able to see this video if I press play? Tell me, will you please?
Oh yeah, I'll let you know. I see something. So far it's not moving. Okay, there it goes. Yeah, it's moving. It's a bit choppy, but not too bad.
Okay, good. That's so this is the site that I was talking about, that I sat there many times over the last 54 years of my life, and always we always knew, like, there's very few people that come up here. It's an isolated place. It's owned by the Cooks, and it's and you can see the water down below. It's not grown in. You could tell that something was there before because the trees that are there, it's open. It's not really like closed in. So that's what I'm talking about with the trading post. Oh, so that's what it looks. That's where it is right there. So that's a whole foundation. That's it. Looking up as you come up the path, and like I said, you can see the water here. And what I was talking about with Durkee Island, I don't know if you guys can see that piece of land that's strewed in trees, but that's where that chapel would have been in the 1730s. So as I got looking in the woods and researching, I started finding stuff. So 1A was I noticed that there was some big rocks, and it wasn't normal. It was like a square. So whether I put a barn or a house, whether that is what it was, but there is a shape of a square that I had to really cut some bushes around it to actually see the spot. So I'll play the video, and I know it's not the best video. But if you want to see it live, that's next spring. You have to come down to Yarmouth, and I'll bring you up there and show it to you for real. So a lot of that stuff I had to cut out and make way. And I know it's hard to see, but there is a square of some sort that was there, and I had to uncover some of it just to make sure, just to see. I know it's not the best video, but it's the best I could do at the time without, I didn't want to remove too many bushes or trees or stuff like that, so. Okay. Okay, so there's a couple of pictures of it. And like I said, I couldn't really see underneath the grass. So I had to actually remove some of these rocks to actually see the lineup. And then I realized that they come there and they go this way. So there's definitely something there at one time. And that's another couple pictures of it. So this foundation 1B, the more digging I did in these woods, the more I started finding. Like a lot of us that hunted in this area never really came in this part here. So this foundation's a little bit different because the rocks seem to have moved on one side already. You'll see what I mean by the video once the video plays. Same thing, I had to clear off a lot of brush and a lot of stuff around here so I could actually see what was, but when I seen the rocks, and a lot of these rocks I haven't touched. And I mean, a lot of this stuff, like these rocks that are eaten here, that's the original. This area has not been touched. But you can see that this foundation is all clear here of rocks, and everything is thrown on this side. So whether somebody was there already and threw that up there many years ago, it's hard to say. So this one here would be down here, 1B, all right? And you can see the water in the shore from there. Okay, and there's a picture of it. Okay. Okay, and then 1C. So down here by the shore, there's always been a pile of rocks here. So I thought maybe it was just a pile of rocks from when they're doing, because the land is really open, so it looks like it's been cultivated. So it looks like maybe this is where they put their pile of rocks. But when I'm going to show you that on the sides, there looks to be some formation there. So I'm going to show you. So this is right on the shore, right down, just down from the fort, I call it. But you can see that it makes a square base, right? And it's square here, right? So it shows you, I don't know if there's something, there might have been something built on top of that at one time, or maybe they, hard to say, but it looks like there was some formation there at some time. I did remove some of these rocks to see how deep it is, and I moved probably 1.5 feet, 2 feet, and it still goes down. So there's a lot of rocks in this area underneath this. I didn't want to disturb it too much, so all that stuff is still right there. I didn't cut out no bushes around it or anything like that. It is as it is. And if you look on from here, wait till we get down to the shore here. I think I'll walk right out. Okay, so that's where Fort Lomeron would have been. So I'm on the other side where I said of on Rogers Point. So Fort Lomeron, there's the greenhouses up there. So that fort. So you could see if that was a trading post or some kind, and that was that boat would have to, or any ship would have to come a long ways around to come put an attack on this area. And there's some more pictures, and like I said, you can see the definition and another picture there. Okay, so when I discovered this is if you follow my arrow, this is a 600-foot rock wall. I paced off 200 paces. My paces are 3 feet, and it's you can only pretty well see the top of it. But this is a long rock wall, and you can see rocks on the shore, rocks everywhere. Okay. So this wall here actually goes. This wall here actually goes 600 feet and meets up with another wall that goes north to west or north to south. That goes about 200 feet. So it's like it's like an L. And you can, I don't know if you guys can see, but it's really open in this area. Like it was really, is there, okay. Okay, and there's a couple more pictures, right? So you can see the top of the rock wall and coming this way, right? So all these trees have grown on top of it, but you can tell whether this rock wall was 3 feet high or whatever at one time. I mean, 400 years of being covered. I mean, you can see the top of it though. On the shore, you can see what looks like rock walls. So on the shore, this runs the whole route. I'm going to show you. That rock there, them pictures I just showed you, is this rock wall that comes all the way here. And you can see the top of the rocks coming all the way there. So some kind of barrier that they had a rock wall, right? This is high up, this foundation right here, the first foundation that I call the fort. That has quite an incline to there. So between that, the rock wall and all that, they're pretty high up. So I'm going to go through that. So there you can see. You see what looks like the remains of a rock wall, right? Same thing with here, right? You can see that's where my arrow is. That's where the church on Durkee Island would have been. And that's where Fort Lomeron would have been up here. Rock, there's a big rock near I like big rocks when I see them. I look for stuff on it and stuff like that. I didn't see no markings or anything on it. But it's a nice triangular rock, points 282 degrees. Actually, Terry, it points at the Overton Rock perfectly. So just wanted you to know that.
Okay.
All right, so it points in that direction. I don't know if it's read on. So this is pictures on the shore looking both ways from Rogers Point. And then I got a video. So this is on the shore at the bottom of the hill of Rogers Point, looking toward Fort Lomeron. Okay, Fort Lomeron would be on that side there. Yep, where I'm zooming in. Okay, up on that hill. And I know it's not referenced to Champlain's map of 1607, but the church that is referenced in the 1730s was up on this hill. That's where the church was. Okay, so that's it for Rogers Point. So I'm going to jump on the other side to what I call Fort Lomeron. So this is a video of me on the other side filming toward Rogers Point. And you can see, like I said, I'm about halfway up the hill, if not toward the bottom of the hill. Oh, shoot. Okay. Okay, so where I just took that video in the last slide, this is where I was up here filming this way. Now I'm on this side filming that way, right? So same thing, there's Durkee Island, there's Rogers Point, in the Chabot River. So this will show you the elevation of what I'm talking about, right? So when you stand there, and if you guys come in the spring and I show you this spot, when you're standing on the top of that hill, it is everything that you need for a fort. And again, you know, my daffodils, there's daffodils right there with Rogers Point. So every time I see daffodils, I always take pictures of them, whatever site I'm at. So, okay, so these are just some of the pictures looking from Fort Lomeron. I'm just going to zoom through a couple of these. That's looking north. I just want to show you the elevation. So that's my dad. So it shows you the elevation. So I'm only halfway up. So to be honest with you, them rocks that were all there that I talked about earlier are all gone. Behind Anthony's greenhouses, to be honest with you, is a mess. It was like a junk pile, cars, just a mess, garbage, you name it. And like I said, when I never got a chance to, when Leland Anthony is around, but when his brother Blaine, who passed away this year, knew where all the rocks were. It's a shame I never ever got the chance to talk to him on where these were. But this has been, like I said, this site here, they are cleaning it up. I was there last year, and they are cleaning up their junk in the back, because it's I think they might be planning on selling this spot. But as far as any looking for any rocks or rock piles or stuff like that, there's very little. And that's looking south. That just shows you, like I said, the elevation. It has everything, right? It has a high elevation that would protect you from attacks. You can see out almost to the Atlantic Ocean. You have all that marsh in front of you. Like I said, there's rocks down by the shore. There's apple trees everywhere. Like I said, that shows you all the, you know, the whole area with Rogers Point in the background. Fresh water. There's fresh water coming off the hills, coming to the Chabot River. From the hills. That's all fresh water coming in from there. Okay, so it has everything it needs to be a good site for a fort. It's looking south. I put this one in because on December 25th, 2019, we had a high course tide at noon, a very rare one. And so I took my kayak and I went up there to see Fort Lomeron from the water. So you can see how tall. You seen that last picture with all the flats and the creeks. Well, this is all over it, right? So okay, now Bill's Island. So I'll call this site 3. So Bill's Island, has the same kind of characteristics. It's got an old foundation. He's cut all this brush and threw all this brush in here, but this is an old foundation right here. You can see in the back there where my arrow is that this is where Fort Lomeron. So from each spot, you can see each location pretty well. You can see 1, 2, 3, and 4. There's a rock foundation there. It's got a high elevation like Rogers Point and stuff like that. It's got the same characteristics as Rogers Point, with the height of where things are. Looking this way, this is where Durkee's Island is. So Rogers Point is up here. I know them are not; those are not the best pictures. And again, on the shore is the same. I followed this rock wall, and it goes all the way this way. So they had a nice rock wall that's been, beat up over the years and covered and stuff like that. So same kind of characteristics as there. And then there's a foundation that's here, but there's no rocks. There's very little rocks on maybe on the left-hand side there, but it's like there was not too much there. There's not too much there for rocks. There's an old well right there on that spot. And that's all I have for Bill's Island. I don't have a lot of information about Bill's Island. Just the fact of them pictures there. And then site 4 is pretty, listen, this is taken from Bill's Island. Site 4 is probably up there on them hills somewhere. So like I said, you have 2 houses up here. If this map is correct, site 4, I mean, you could get lucky and on top of this hill, be where site 4 was, right? Who knows, right? So. And that's it for my presentation. So all I wanted to say was, thank you for listening and giving me the time to do this. I know you guys would probably rather have a Christmas party than listen to me, but thanks for inviting me. And I'm going to invite you, if you're interested in the story and seeing these spots, you come down in the spring, March or April, before the bugs come out and the ticks come out and the grass starts growing, and I'll take you to these places. I'll arrange it and we'll go see these places, and I'll give you another little presentation. And I mean, we've got to remember that the Acadian Congress is coming in 2024. So one of the reasons why I'm trying to do this presentation now is I like to get some momentum. If it's looked into more than what my presentation, I've done what I can, but I like to see what more we can do with this story. So that's all I got, Terry.
Thank you very much, Todd. That was a great presentation. Yeah, excellent. We usually open this up for questions, and last week when we did this, I asked people to write their questions in the chat, but maybe we can try something a little different this time. I can invite people to unmute and open up their microphone and their video if they wish, and ask us directly or ask you directly. So
yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Let's see how that goes. I think Susan may be the first one.
Oh, hey, it's nice
Hey,
to
Susan.
see information about Chebogue. Can you guys hear me and see me?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. I'm from Eelbrook, so I'm just from down the road from there. And for some reason, Chebogue has always been a little intriguing to me. I think because there is a few references about Pierre Potier, who was an Acadian, who is in a census for having been in Chebogue. I think you mentioned it in one of the Acadian censuses. And one of the interesting things that I realized, because when you're there, you don't really get it. There's so many inlets and marshes and all of that, and you feel like one place is far from the other. But when you showed the map with Chebogue, and very, very near it is Wedgeport, as the crow flies. And so to me, that was intriguing, because Pierre Potier and his family were in Chebogue before the deportation, and he's not there at the deportation. He's by that time has gone to Beaubassin, and his son, Dominic, actually marries Anne Surratt, and he comes to settle in the Eelbrook sort of area, and they have a whole family of potiers. And if you know Wedgeport, you know that there's tons of potiers there. So in a sense, it was intriguing to me to think that Dominique Potier, who was probably a little kid when they were living in Chebogue, in fact, came back to that area after all the things that happened to them after the deportation. And if not him, then certainly his sons or grandkids settled in Wedgeport and became quite prosperous. So it's just an interesting kind of circle of life. So that's just an observation. But the other thing is, with regard to David Lomeron being Protestant, I don't think, I mean, I'm not a historian either, but you know that Pierre Dugas de Meaux was a Protestant as well. And Champlain was a Catholic, but you know, it seems to be a little like whatever religion is going to get you what you need is just about the one they're going to be. So whether or not Champlain was that big a Catholic is questionable too. But at that time, I don't recall ever reading anything that had to do with a particular rivalry between the Catholics and the Protestants. They were into business, and whatever religion they had to be to do the trading business, the fur trading business, the exploring, then they were going to sign up for that. So to me, it doesn't seem to be. I've always thought that Lomeron and in particular Charles de la Tour were business partners, friends. They were kind of around at the same time. So I haven't seen any kind of questions on a rivalry due to religion. It may have been a business rivalry that some of them had, but I'm very intrigued to see that Fort Lomeron could be in Chebogue. And I do in this area, in the Grand Pre area, the Rivière-au-Canard area, I'm going through the landscape too with indications of where things are. And I have to say, I can understand how you feel by walking around and seeing what there is to see and imagining where the fort is, where the trading post is, etc. And the other thing is, sorry to take up all your time, but the idea of these guys were here early. They were here. Lomeron and Nicolas Denis and all those guys were here before like Acadian families got here big time. So what happened in that time, in the 1614s and all of that, before the 1630s? Like these guys were coming to fish and to trade and to exploit the fur trade and establish relations with the Mi'kmaq, etc. And that's quite a long gap where these French guys would come and be here for a period of time. And so that whole period is kind of missing. And I think it's really intriguing. So hopefully somebody, by digging up more about these trading posts and all of that, there will be more kind of to understand on how that even links into the story, because it's kind of a black hole in a way, but very intriguing. And I think maybe the beginnings of Acadie start with those guys, the ones that come and stay, and then become integrated into the Acadian community that comes later. But in any case, thank you very much. I really enjoyed it. And I don't know, anybody else?
Yeah,
Thanks,
great
Susan.
comment, Susan. Yeah, do you want to say anything to that, Todd?
No, thanks, Susan. No, it's I know Wedgeport is just down the road, so it's you know, Frog Point is just on the other side. So no, it's nice to see you. Thank you.
Oh, and the other thing is, when you have your tour, let me know. I'd love to go walking around there.
Listen, if you're ever in Yarmouth and I can give you my information and I'll take you for a tour anytime.
Perfect.
Excellent. Anyone else want to unmute and on video if you like? We'd love to hear from more people. There's a
I'll
lot.
just chime in and say one little thing. My name is Samantha Brannon. I'm the museum director for the Barrington Museum Complex. We're installing an exhibit in June of 2022 on Fort St. Louis. And so some of this, of course, is going to be referred to in that. And I mentioned in the comments that I pass this information along to Dr. Katie Cottrell-Robbins to let her know, that Todd is familiar with some of these areas, just in case that this comes up and is an opportunity for her to look at. I'm particularly curious about the chapel that you mentioned, Todd, and wondering, has anyone ever been out to investigate that? Or, is there anything solid with that information? We're thinking as well for Congrès in 2024 and hoping to get back down to Fort St. Louis in 2023 and 2024 to do some more information and digging. Lots of exciting things coming from there. So that's all I have to say.
Yeah, so the chapel on Durkee Island, actually it's owned by the Cook family here in Yarmouth, and they actually have it up for sale. I think they want 850. I think they wanted $1 million a couple of years ago. They've dropped it down to 800-something thousand. And I should make this note that Rogers Point has been sold, and has been sold recently. And one of my biggest pushes was I didn't want a contractor getting up there and getting a big backhoe and start destroying stuff of history. But I know that the Durkee Island, all Durkee Island is for sale from the Cooks, and whether that's going to be sold in the future. But yeah, even the guys before me, like Dave Solos and Gary Archibald, guys that are, my teachers and principals that are now in their 70s or 80s, they've known this all the time too. And they've been up to Durkee Island. They've known all about Fort Lomeron. They've known, so I've almost been guided by them too, right? That I've almost put this stuff together, because I don't want to say this, but I think our generation is one of the last generations that's going to really care about a lot of this history, right? I think our younger generation, I don't see a lot of younger generation caring a lot about this. So I think it's more important for us as we get older to really push this and find answers, right? And actually document it, right? So I know Durkee Island, the Cooks, that land is for sale, and so I mean, whether somebody gets up there someday with an excavator and digs up everything, but that church was there at one time. When you stand there, you'll see that when you stand on any of these places, including Fort Lomeron, you'll see that, you'll believe it. I can honestly, I mean, I don't want to say that, but you will see what they saw, and I see it, I feel it, and I mean, I don't want to sound too strange, but that's just the way I am. So.
Great.
May I add something?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm Alice Snowball. I live towards, I'm come from Sonyville, but my grandmother comes from Camus Hill. So I have from about both areas, Anyway, my mother was a historian, so she just tells stories of Camus Hill, and my father would tell stories of Southwest Nova towards our area here in Clare. And so I was always interested in history. And then after a while, like 3 years ago, I was hired at Fort Anne for historic heritage interpreter to replace somebody for the summer. So it gave me even more drive to learn about more. So that's why I'm joining this group today. I've been doing research since I was at Fort Anne, and talk to Wayne and talk to Alan. I'm not an expert, but I'm gathering more information as I go. So it's very, informative, and I'm going to do research this winter on Fort Lomeron, just, as a hobby. I have my own accounting business, but this is just so that, okay, I want to learn more about it too. Yeah.
Great to hear
So
from
that,
you.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. Go ahead, Todd.
No, I was just going to say, Alice, I think that, I mean, stuff like that, that's why I think my presentation, I mean, I'm not an expert by any means too, right? And I think people that got the passion for any story like that, I think if we all come together with with little bits. I mean, every time I get on the computer and Google stuff, it seems like I find more and more stuff, right? And if I go to the museum and sit there and just go through documents and files that they have, it's so I think the more people on this story that can bring it together, and then maybe come the new year, after your winter of research, Terry, we get together again, right? Maybe we can get together face to face in Yarmouth, and we can meet and we can go see these spots, right? We can organize something, right? And I think that, for us that are on this presentation and got a passion for it, I think we gotta all team up for something like that, right? And kind of and put our heads together and see how far we can bring this, right?
I'm just gonna add, it's not for promoting my business, but I also do Acadian walking tours in Bellevos Cove and in Church Point, just to show the story of the people who escaped the deportation and went to New Brunswick, then came back, and some founded Clare. And so that's where I'm doing research on Pubnico, Wedgeport, because the people there, they were the original founders, they went back to that land. So anyway, I'm doing research over there also. So it's all Southwest Nova, of course.
Excellent.
Okay.
Terry, is there some way to send people like my email address, like this group of people, like
Yeah.
Susan and Alice and them somehow, and then they have my email address, and then if they ever wanted to, they knew they were coming to Yarmouth or they wanted any information on that, we can
Pop
work
it in
together.
the chat. You could
Yeah.
pop it in the chat.
Yeah,
Todd.
I'll put it in the chat window in just a moment. Yes, I will.
Okay.
Yeah, let me just pick up though on something that Sam Brannan mentioned about the Barrington Historical Society, because that was where we first met, Todd, at a presentation organized by the museum there, as well as Katie Couture-Robbins, about the excavations at Fort St. Louis. And when I spoke to you that evening, your dad was with you, and you said you were trying to talk to Katie to tell her about some of this, and I never did hear. Did you ever get a chance to tell Katie about it?
No, I think she was so busy. I think there was a lineup of. I mean, she gave a good presentation. So, yeah, because that's where I asked you if you knew what was the oldest map in Canada, and it stuck in your head.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I never had a chance, and I like to actually sit down and meet, have a coffee sometime, and actually, go over, some of this stuff, right? Because
Yeah, there's I think her department would definitely love to be involved in taking this to the next level. I'm pretty sure. I know. I think she was actually on the video there at an earlier point in the evening, and also Vanessa as well. I saw them log in, but I don't think they stayed for the whole thing, so they may not have seen it all. But anyway, yeah, let's get them updated one way or another. Anyone else care to offer a comment?
It's still me again, and if nobody else is saying as the other, a lot of us are saying we're not experts, etc. And I just like to kind of give us a little hooray anyway, because lately I have taken people around. I usually do tours in the Grand Pré, Rivière au Canard, Pisiquid sort of area, what was called Les Mines. And so me and my group, Les Amis de Grand Pré, we often do tours, sometimes specific to a person or a group. And I have to tell you that a few times we have toured experts. So university historians, people who have written books, people, etc. So who you might think or would easily call themselves experts. And they are every single time totally blown away by actually being on the sites, on the land. In fact, one of them told us once, he was a retired university history professor, and he said, uh-oh, I think I should have come here before I started teaching. So we shouldn't depreciate ourselves for being not experts, because what we can show people is something that you just can't get in a book or a document. When you walk on the land and you see the view and you see the elevation and you can see what you can see from where, those kinds of things are just not easily explained. And because we're here on the land, we have a unique perspective that even experts don't have until they can do it. So we should carry on.
Good comment there, Susan. Someone has asked in the chat about the recording. Yeah, I did record this, especially once we restarted it. So I don't know yet what we're going to do with that recording. Make it available one way or another, perhaps. If it is something that you want to access again, you could send us a message either by email or put it on the Facebook page, and we'll try to keep track of who express an interest in it, and at least let those people know if and when it does become available. Here at the Nova Scotia Archaeology Society, we've not really recorded a lot of our talks. We have done a few of them, so we don't have a system set up for it, but you know, we'll probably find a way to make it happen one way or another. Mm-hmm. Anyone else want to leave a comment?
No, Terry, I just wanted to say one thing about so I found out last week that Rogers Point, so the Cooks, like I said, the Cooks own Durkee Island, and part of, and the Cooks owned Rogers Point. So when I'll finish off that story. So when they were selling it for $1 million, it involved Rogers Point. So Rogers Point to them didn't mean nothing, because their camp is on Durkee Island. So, but they were just throwing in that piece of land as part of that. So after my first year of research and meeting with the Cooks, they knew the importance of that land. The owner of the land a couple of weeks ago called me, and they sold the Rogers Point, and they sold it to Ducks Unlimited. Ducks Unlimited have bought the land. Actually, Ducks Unlimited have bought that land to preserve the marshland around Rogers Point, which is full of ducks. Which I thought, I said to the owner, I said, well, that's the fact that you sold it is not a bad thing. If you would have told me you would have sold it to somebody who was going to have a backhoe back there and digging out all them trees, and that I might have been a little bit more upset. But there might be an opportunity. I got to try to track down a Ducks Unlimited representative to let them know about this foundation and this site, that if they own this property now, that they got to know the importance of the historical part of that site, that they don't, I don't know if they keep the land, or if they just keep the marsh, if they try to sell land. But anyway, that's my project for the next couple of weeks here, to try to get a contact for Ducks Unlimited, just to see if they know this story. Maybe they'll preserve it even more for us, for the ones that might do something with it, right? So that was my biggest
I know
fear.
someone from Ducks Unlimited.
Yeah.
I know someone from Ducks Unlimited. I can send you an email probably.
Yeah, if you don't mind, that would be nice, because I'm looking, because that's I've always worried about somebody. It's the most beautiful spot in Frog Point, so I've always worried about it being sold and being gone. But if I can hook up with Ducks Unlimited and try to preserve this site even more, it'd be even more important. So if you don't mind.
So it's Rogers Island, right?
No, it's called Rogers Point, but Rogers Point is just a nickname like Frog Point that we give the William Allen Road.
Okay, William Allen Road. Okay, so if I contact the guy at Ducks Unlimited, how do I tell him where it is or what property it is?
Well, why don't you tell him to contact me, and then I'll explain it to him. Probably
Perfect.
easier, Susan, right? And he might have somebody, a different representative that he wants me to talk to too, right? So
yeah.
no,
Okay.
Appreciate it. Yeah, that'd be nice, Susan. Thank you.
Great. Well, we're really making a lot of connections here tonight. I noticed, we've had about 30 people online during this presentation, and not all of them are names I recognize. So if some of you are not actually members of the Nova Scotia Archaeology Society, I highly encourage you to join us. I've just put the link in the chat to our membership page. And let me tell you, we have a lot of fascinating material in the course of a year. Todd's presentation is a great example of that, but there's others coming. So please join us and be up to date on all the latest announcements and talks that are coming out. With that, I think we will close up for tonight. And just a reminder that there is another lecture on the fourth Tuesday in January. So please join us again for that event. And so once again, Todd, thank you very much. And to all, have a great holiday. Good night for now.
Thank you. See you again.